Illinois Representative Eric Sorensen is joining us to discuss the latest. Eric, thank you so much for waking up so early to join us.
Good morning to you.
So, Eric, obviously one of the biggest headlines coming out of Washington, we're facing yet another partial government shutdown on Friday if Republicans and Democrats can't come together to fund the government. So first things first, we know there's been at least maybe some positive news overnight on discussions. Where are we at right now?
Yeah, so it almost feels like we're in Groundhog Day again, even though it's Sleep Day, right? So here we are at the end of the continuing resolution as we continue to fund the government. The government shutdown looms here March 1st, tomorrow, and again, Congress is waiting until the very last moment to get things done. However, today on the floor of the House of Representatives, we'll vote on another continuing resolution, which continues the old budget on, which keeps things funded in a short-term measure. But look, I mean, this is just kicking the can down the road. We need a full budget. I mean, this is proof to people back home that Congress is still not working. We need to make sure that the appropriators get the job done because, look, this is personal to me. I met last week back home, with veterans, with seniors, with farmers to make sure they're not the ones that are at the risk if the government shuts down for funding. We need to make sure that we get the job done because guess what? This is connected to real people.
Right, and so what we're kind of talking about here is a stopgap measure. And so we've heard about the stopgap measure that might go into play. We've also heard about all the negotiations on the border funding for our overseas allies. So what do you think is a better solution for America and Americans?
Yeah, first of all, we need to make sure that the border is secure. I've said that from day one. We need to make sure that we're not only funding the security at our border, we're finding the fentanyl that's coming into the country. Listen, I talked to a constituent from Rock Island just last week when I was home, and she lost her daughter to the fentanyl crisis. This is real. This is affecting people. We need to make sure that we are doing everything that we can. And for us to really have that impact that the people want, we need to come together. Republicans are as frustrated, I think, as Democrats are today, because right now we are hamstrung by the extremists in Congress. We need to make sure that people have our back. People are focused on bipartisan solutions, and everything needs to be at the table because, we need to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Do you think Americans are getting a little tired of being under the constant threat of a shutdown every couple of months?
Well, I can tell you that I am. I came to Congress. I'm one of the very few people that gets to work in Washington on Capitol Hill without a background in politics. We are in such a great congressional district because we have almost the equal number of Democrats and Republicans. Bipartisanship is the great thing about Congress. Building the friendships with those on the other side of the aisle is one of my favorite things to do because you get differing opinions. We don't have to agree on everything, but the things that we can focus on, those are the things that we can agree with. And look, right now, it doesn't work. And the people back home are as frustrated, I think, as I am, which is why we need to make sure that we understand and we know every person that's elected.
Now, Eric, you mentioned it a couple times. You were back here in the Quad Cities last week. Now, what impacts would the people of the Quad Cities feel if the government partially shuts down?
Right. I mean, look, we need to make sure that our service members who are taking that oath to defend our country are being paid. First and foremost, I hear from veterans. I've done numerous veterans roundtables to understand where the disconnects for all of the levels of care that we need for vets. And look, it's not just vets. It's our military men and women. It's understanding what's most important. Next week is the State of the Union address, and I'm bringing not only someone who has served from Rock Island County, is home, but he was awarded 2 Purple Hearts for his service fighting overseas, injured in the role of defending our country. He needs to be here in Washington. I want to bring him to the Capitol building. These are the real people that are implicated by government's inability to work together.
Now, switching gears, Eric, you helped introduce a bill that would protect access to abortions. Can you tell us what this bill is and what it does and what you hope to accomplish?
Right. We can't take for granted that in a state like Illinois, that reproductive health care remains. One of the things that we also have to look at is the fact that people are coming from Iowa. They're literally crossing a bridge into a different state to get reproductive health care. So this is called the Access Act. And I teamed up with Dr. Caraveo in Congress. She has a background in medicine. She is a pediatrician from Colorado and a great colleague of mine. So we teamed up to make sure that we can get the access and the funding to states like Illinois, where we are a safe haven for women. Because look, the direction that we're going right now, we saw with the Alabama ruling and the IVF possibilities that families can't even plan their own families. Look, I mean, this is the product of the extremists that are taking over in our government. However, we need to make sure that as that happens, that we are fighting back. And this is one of those bills that's going to do just that.
And Eric, I want to talk about the Alabama ruling on IVF. We know yesterday in the Senate, the bill that was being introduced by Tammy Duckworth was killed by a Republican lawmaker. And so obviously this has people really concerned around the country about the future of IVF and that service. And so what is your message to Quad Cityans on this issue?
It's devastating. Look no further than the story of Tammy Duckworth, who was injured serving our country. She needed IVF to be able to grow her family, and how important that is to her. Her family is the most important thing, maybe next to her own life. But her life was almost taken from her. So these are personal things. We need to make sure that the only people that have a decision-making position in a doctor's office are the doctors and the patients. And so what we're seeing on display in Alabama, and it's unconscionable to me that now you're seeing politicians say, well, I didn't mean that, or oh, maybe I do support this. No, we have to understand today that there are extremists there that want to take the rights of women away, and we need to stand up against that.